may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
The Bears.
Because of the way they play the nickel corner here, and the nickel corner plays 85% of the snaps. He's got to be like part linebacker.
The Bears.
When you're in a scouting room, there's going to be differences of opinion.
The Bears.
Once coaches get involved, of course, they've got their own opinions about what fits best for what they want to do, and that could be drastically different than what the scouts say.
Well, you're looking at traits, and he tested very, very well.
The Bears.
One thing good about Kevin, he's been with 2 other organizations, as well as being the commissioner of the Big Ten. He's been around.
The Bears.
With Greg Olson, Jerry didn't want to get rid of him. I didn't want to get rid of him. Nobody wanted to get rid of him. One guy wanted to get rid of him, Mike Martz, because Mike Martz didn't know what the hell to do with him. We tried to talk Lovey out of hiring Mike Martz for a month and a half. He's playing zone, but number one, he doesn't get enough depth with the drop. But who the hell's giving? How many times does a 305, 310-pound defensive tackle drop into coverage, especially in a key situation?
The Bears.
Greg, why are teams wrong on quarterback evaluation so often?
Number one, it's a hard position to evaluate. There's probably not as many real good quarterback evaluators as there needs to be.
The Bears. The Bears. The Bears.
Welcome, everyone, to a fresh edition of GTF Gabriel Talks Football. My name is Aldo Gandia. Quick programming note. First of all, I want to apologize. We were not on yesterday, and that was my fault. I had something going on, and Greg graciously said, well, let's do the show on Tuesday. So it is Tuesday, and we're doing the show. Secondly, we've got a show coming up tomorrow night. Mr. Shorty from the Bears Country Productions is going to join. Jeff Willis, I think, is going to join us, and Steven Zimmerman. Jeff Willis is at the airport right now. I saw in the chat flying home, and Steven Zimmerman will join Tooch and myself to talk some football and have some stupid trivia games that I'm planning on doing. So let me bring in the guy that makes sense of everything I say. Greg Gabriel, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm good, man. You look like you have been getting some sun. Have you been out there golfing or anything?
No. My body's too beat up to play golf anymore.
Those days are over, huh? Yeah, same here, man. My back makes it difficult for me to swing the club.
Really, that's what happens to me. I got arthritis in my lower back, and I can play for 9 holes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get onto the back 9, and then everything just starts getting real sore. And the last time I played golf, it took me 2 days to recover.
Wow. You don't want that. That's
like because it gets all swelled up in there, from the arthritis in the lower back.
You got it bad. Oh, man.
Yeah. Hey, it is what it is.
It is what it is. And also what it is, when you follow the Chicago Bears on social media, you're going to get a lot of stupid talk about trading Cole Kmet. What the hell? I've been trying to stay off social media because of stuff like that. It's so irritating.
It's crazy. Yesterday, the Dolphins trade Ramsey and Jonnu Smith to the Steelers. So right away, Miami's going to trade for Cole Kmet. It's a done deal. I mean, that's basically what social media is saying. It was crazy. And the stuff you get back, you don't know what you're talking about. They're going to trade him. So what happens? Miami trades for a tight end today.
How about that?
Wasn't Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet is not going anywhere. He's a very important part of this team. But what's funny is that people still don't get that Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet do not play the same position.
Correct.
Yes, they are classified in the league for purposes of contracts as tight ends, but one is a Y tight end and the other is H/F/move tight end.
Mm-hmm.
slash detached tight end, however you want to refer to. And Cole can do that job, but Colson Loveland cannot do what Cole can do, and that's play wide.
Mm-hmm. I guess it is because people have grown up to learn the game where there was just one tight end in the field. And over the past couple of decades or more, we've introduced more formations into the game. And so more specialty players, the tight end now basically can play 3 type positions, right? That's right. The inline tight end, the off the ball tight end, the guy that lines up as a wide receiver or slot wide receiver. And the third one is probably almost like an interior offensive lineman is what I'm guessing.
Another Y, or it could be like an offset fullback.
There you go. That's what I was thinking.
There's a lot of different things you can do with it. You can use a lot of 12 personnel. Teams are even using 13 personnel at times. But when you've got 2 good tight ends and you go to 12, you're creating a lot of mismatches, especially when you got 2 guys that are 6'6" or taller.
Right. And the idea of trading Cole Kmet, even if you were not aware of the specialty positions these 2 guys play and what they're best at, even if you were not aware of that, the idea of trading away the tight end that you acquired, trading the veteran tight end you have on the team because you acquired a rookie is just a colossal mistake. That rookie has yet to see a snap on the field. You don't know if he's going to be 100% when the season starts. Are you going to start Durham Smythe out there at tight end if Colson Loveland's not available? It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, and I'll go back to the one thing. Loveland cannot play the inline tight end position.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he can do it. He can line up there. Your running game will suffer because of it. He's just not a good enough blocker, and he never will be. He's not, he's not built that way.
Mm-hmm. AW says if there is a money reason to move Kmet, such as needing money to sign a key player set to be a free agent, then I would understand it. But why make a strength weaker for draft capital? I agree with that, but there's no one they're going to sign now for any kind of big money, and to move Cole Kmet, to free up money, that's not an easy task. Easy because there's some guaranteed dollars on his contract. We'd have to do some research on that, but probably not a good move.
He got re-up 2 years ago, so there'd be a pretty good size cap hit. Dropping him off. You go through the Microsoft's news sports page is my home page on my laptop. So you go in there and there's all these articles from these obscure websites. And most of them are for Chicago-based things about, trades. And the way they put the headlines is like, these are done deals. Could be a Cubs trade, it could be a Bears trade or whatever. And none of which are true. They're just made up stories. And the worst is one site called Heavy, then another one called Fan-Sided, and another one called Chicago City Sports. They're brutal, and nobody tells the truth. They just make stuff up as they go along.
Yeah. And I understand, we're starving for content, and so we got to talk about that. But there's stuff to talk about. You don't have to start this wild, reckless speculation on stuff that just doesn't pass the muster once you've given it 10 seconds of thought. That's what bothers me is just some stuff is so far out there.
It's all clickbait.
Yep. New England Bears fan says, Greg, it seems that every week there is a new photo, video, or quote from Caleb. Do you think he is too open in sharing his personal life?
I haven't seen any, so you must be looking forward to seeing. Have you seen any?
I want to say he was at that fan-sided press conference. He had a couple of quotes.
I was at that, but that was a big to-do. That was a big media thing.
Right. I saw him in a photograph. Some fans ran into him at a fast food restaurant, took a photograph with him. Outside of that, I'm not sure what New England Bears fan is talking about. Now, is he in some of these interviews that he did with Esquire, and obviously he talked with Seth Wickersham for that upcoming book? Is he sharing too much there? Maybe. But I don't see it as a problem. I don't think that it's gonna hurt his play in 2025.
And some of that stuff was done months ago. It's
Yes.
not like it was done last week.
Yeah, exactly. And, I do think that when he spoke with Seth, when he and his father, Caleb and his father, spoke with Seth Wickersham, I think that they were trying to get out in front of, his poor play, or his, I shouldn't say poor play, but his less than desirable play in 2024, his rookie season. They were trying to explain that, and that there was a lot of dysfunctionality within the team, and that everything shouldn't be thrust on his shoulders. And that, I think, is fair for him to properly explain that. What do you think, Greg?
Well, yeah, I agree somewhat. I mean, he's going to protect himself. And he's a 22-year-old kid, so when you get criticism and you're 22, it's not like you get criticism when you're our age. Mm-hmm. And dads being dads are going to protect their kid. It's
Absolutely.
just natural.
Absolutely. All right. Our main topic for today, somebody's asked me, Greg, what do you think about Pro Football Focus's quarterback ceilings and floors for Caleb? But you haven't seen
it. It was
that,
a total joke, just like Pro Football Focus.
I apologize, Erica. You saw it?
I saw a picture with it, and the floor for Caleb is a bust. And how that, where's that come from?
A bust.
Yeah, Pro Football Focus is good with analytics. It ends there.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to player evaluations and other things, they are totally clueless.
Yeah.
As we've discussed several times, like they say a guy gives up X amount of pressures in a game, and you watch the tape and you go, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It's so subjective. They got so many people analyzing stuff. Now, they try to explain it goes through various stages of analysis. Somebody does the initial analysis, somebody checks it, and somebody else then checks it and stuff. It doesn't matter. It's still wrong. And how quickly they put out these player grades, looking at tape after a game is ridiculous.
They got grades out within an hour or two after a game's over.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, having done this all my adult life, that's impossible.
Yeah, I thought so. But yeah, I still subscribe to the goddamn thing. So
well, no, and for some of the stuff, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Some of the analytics, I take it. Just get out of the player evaluation business, because they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Thank you.
And they don't have people who are qualified to do it.
Indeed. All right, we're going to talk about the big story that came out on Pablo Torre's show called Pablo Torre Finds
Out. Never heard of this guy, until a couple of weeks ago when Florio was pushing him because he was, going after Belichick week after week.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've heard of Pablo because I watch a lot of ESPN. He started there. He used to take he used to be a guest in a number of shows. Then he was given his own show. Now he's gone off on his own, or at least for a couple of years. He was over at Meadowlark Productions. So I've heard of him. He's in my mind, he's a really good journalist. And what he did was uncover a 61-page report that was, I think it's safe to say, was buried by the NFLPA and NFL owners when there was an independent judicial committee looking into allegations of collusion between NFL owners to keep guaranteed contracts at a minimum. That's safe to say, Greg?
Yeah.
All right. And so the questions are, well, why did they keep it quiet? Why not be transparent about that? And so in the world of journalism, when somebody is trying to hide something, you want to go digging for it. And so Pablo got his hands on the 61-page document. Mike Florio has been trying to get his hands on it for months now or years, and both.
Well, it came out in January, so it's
okay.
But let's be fair. If there's anything that's anti-NFL, Mike Florio will try to jump all over it. Now, the guy makes his living because the NFL exists, but he does everything in his power to try to just discredit it, which is beyond me.
And so what the committee found was that there was not enough evidence to cite collusion between the NFL owners. Now, let me just provide a little background. This all started when the Cleveland Browns gave Deshaun Watson a guaranteed 5-year contract, $230 million. And owners immediately were saying things like, what are they doing over there? This is going to wreck us. I'm paraphrasing, but this is going to have profound
effect on contract negotiations. Probably the best way of putting it.
There you go. Thank you very much. So there was some correspondence. This is proven that the NFL held a meeting on what is called the NFL Management Council, NFLMC. And Florio's take is, well, what is this NFLMC? If you have a
management council has been around forever. In fact, most of the cap guys in the league, not all, most, the Bears cap guy, Feinstein, all started off as interns working for the management council and work, and they basically what they do is go through every contract page by page, inch by inch. And these guys, learn contracts, how they're written and everything else, and they get full-time jobs. And then the guys who are really good get cap jobs with the different clubs. There's probably, I'm going to say probably half the cap guys in the league at one time worked for the management council.
Okay. So Florio's contention is if you have 32 independent businessmen who are told by the NFL in public, they're independent businessmen, they run their teams, blah, 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 then why do you need a management council to advise them on anything?
Because they're a league, they're one entity.
Well, and he just feels like if they're not going to be transparent about what goes on at these council meetings, then they're probably hiding something they don't want fans to know.
Well, of course, Mike Florio says that because that's his whole spiel. There must be something wrong. But the funny thing is that the judge who listened to the case said there is no collusion. Now, there was phone calls. One of the phone calls was between Bidwell, the Arizona Cardinal owner, after he had the extension signed with their quarterback. And he's talking to the Chargers owner, who was just getting ready to do a contract negotiation with his quarterback,
Justin Herbert.
And the Chargers owner says, I really like the contract you did with that. And he said, I tried to stay away from, I was only going to go so far on the guarantees. And he goes, well, and the other guy says, well, I hope to do the same thing with me. Now, Florio will say, well, that's collusion. No, it's not. It's simple conversation between two entities. Now, here's the part they leave out. And they totally leave out. One of the reasons they do is because they aren't the NFL is yes, they are 32 separate franchises, but they are a single entity, the National Football League. Guess who else colludes? The agents. You don't think they talk to each other about all this stuff? But in fact, I had a conversation with one of the guys I do work with, and he goes, well, no, we don't collude. We're all separate people. I just laughed. I said, oh, you don't talk to so-and-so about a contract? Well, yeah, we talk. Same thing.
But I do think that's different, Greg, because, agents exchanging information about contracts so that they can potentially get a better deal for their clients.
Okay. Now that you can switch that around and say teams exchange information about their contracts so the teams get good deals on the contracts that they're doing. Can't you reverse it and say it the same way?
You can, but if the league is trying to prove that each team is independent and trying their best to win a Super Bowl for their fans, then why are you talking to somebody else about not guaranteeing contracts and whacking the pay structure of players out of whack?
Well,
I think that's the
part of this makes it sound like there's no guarantees in contracts, which we all know is totally false. In fact, every rookie, all 32 first-round rookies, have fully guaranteed 4-year contracts.
Mm-hmm.
The day they sign that contract, everything they earn for the next 4 years is fully guaranteed. Okay, and you get several contracts. In fact, Kirk Cousins signed one contract, a 3-year contract that was fully guaranteed.
Right.
Okay, it was maybe $87 million or something like that. One of those deals he did with Minnesota. All the deals these big quarterbacks are getting are partially guaranteed. Guaranteed into the 130, 140, $150 million.
Mm-hmm.
But not 250, which the whole deal may end up being if the player plays the whole time. But at the same time, there's things written in the contract that if you're still on, let's say it's a 5-year deal, and I don't know all the exact particulars, but if you get in, say, like you're on the roster at the beginning of the 3rd year of that contract,
mm-hmm.
the 4th year is guaranteed, and then the next year the 5th year is guaranteed. So there are guarantees.
Yes,
it's just not all. It's not like a baseball contract or an NBA contract that is guaranteed for the life of the contract. In fact, I saw a thing today. It's July 1st. So who the hell is the player? I got to tell you, I got it because it was in my Twitter feed.
Sure.
He's getting a baseball player who hasn't played forever. Mm-hmm. Every July 1st gets $1 million check from his contract. And he gets it for another 10 years.
Oh, nice.
I got to read it to you.
And by the way, just for people, I know we're getting into the weeds with this whole contract collusion thing. It's one of the things you do in the first week of July when there isn't any hardcore Bears news. But I do think it's of interest and is applicable because the Bears now have 3 second-round picks, and all 3 of them, their agents, are angling for guaranteed contracts. So there's some trickle-down effect here. Greg, you found that player?
Yeah, okay. Happy Bobby Bonilla Day. Bonilla is set to collect another $1.193 million for the New York Mets today, as he will each July 1st through the year 2035.
That is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Now, when's the last time Bobby Bonilla played?
And played well. That's a long, long time ago. And we're talking decades. Yeah, I had a buddy that worked at a bank, and Julio Cruz signed one of those contracts with the Chicago White Sox, and we're talking about the 1980s, 90s, I want to say. And the guy for decades was getting a check cut out every month or every whatever because the way that deal was worked out. It's unbelievable. So, one of the interesting things that I found out about this, and Greg, perhaps you can set some context to this, because J.C. Tretter, who was a really good offensive lineman, first with the Packers and then with the Browns, he was cut. Buffalo boy. He was cut after this whole collusion thing came out, or when the Deshaun Watson contract was signed, he was cut because they needed money to pay Deshaun Watson. So he could not run to be the executive director of the NFLPA.
I think wasn't he the player president?
Right, and could only be for 1 year because he was not playing on an NFL team.
Right, you got to be a player to be that person. You
Right,
got to be an active player.
So when they, after that season, when he was going to be out of a job, the president of the NFLPA, Demoris Smith,
who is no longer in
who is
that
no longer,
job.
he was leaving the job, and so J.C. Tretter was entrusted with the job of finding his replacement. Total darkness on that. They didn't announce that they were looking for one. They didn't announce what the requirements were. All of a sudden, this new guy, and I'm forgetting his name, is hired as the NFLPA. And as part of that, that guy hires J.C. Tretter in a newly formed position in the union. And so they're greasing the skids there. The player representative is greasing the skid allegedly so that he could get a seven-figure job, a job that pays over $1 million. This is according to the court document. So I ask you, Greg, hasn't that stuff with the players union been going on for decades? Wasn't Gene Upshaw, who was the head of the players union for many years, wasn't he accused by players of working with the owners to keep salaries down, and yet Gene was getting rich as the NFLPA and getting perks from the owners? Do you recall that?
I know Gene Upshaw had a very good relationship with Tagliabue back in the day.
I remember that, yeah.
When they needed to get something done, they could get something done because of the good working relationship they had. You know, you don't have to have a fight to get a deal done. You know, and you know, as part of a collective bargaining agreement, I think the players are getting 50% of the money taken in. There's certain things that aren't involved in that. Most of the stuff is involved in the equation. And as we can see, the salary cap keeps going up and up every year. Went up, what, 20 million or something this year, you know, from last year. It's going to go up because of the gambling money coming in. It's just going to skyrocket coming up. And then you're going to get this extra overseas money coming in. All that's going to have a play on the salary cap because of the amount of dollars coming into the league and coming into the teams is just huge. So the players are getting their fair share. Now, I mean, you look at some of the contracts these guys got. You got defensive ends now. The top edge rushers are getting over $30 million. You know, so it's like, what are they complaining about? You know, is it all guaranteed? No. I mean, but Florio, what got me about this, one of the reasons I wanted to bring up with you, he's writing his articles like the owners lost the case when they didn't. They won the case.
Right.
They totally won the case. And it's like, why is he even writing that? The judge ruled on the side of the owners.
Yeah. Well, and this is from Sports Illustrated. The final line here says, the ruling makes it sound like the league encouraged its teams to collude, but there is no evidence of a formal collusion agreement was ever reached among the owners. So all of the evidence that was compiled certainly leads people to believe, these are kind of coded words. These are presentations all designed to get the owners to stop these, ridiculous $300 million guaranteed contracts. But never did anybody says, okay, I'll do it. I'll do that. Shake on that. And so that's why the council that investigated this could not say they colluded. But there was evidence of informal talks and so forth that would lead people to believe
True. And they said, and there's no way I can say that those formal talks were two owners talking together about individual contracts. And what was weird was these were like after the fact type things. And it's like, so what's your point?
All right, so let's talk about the Lamar Jackson situation. So while this is happening, Lamar is trying to negotiate a new contract. Who worked on his own behalf as his agent, trying to work a new contract with the Baltimore Ravens, and Lamar sent them a a message saying, I know that you guys don't do this, but I am going to be asking for a fully guaranteed contract. And so the Ravens did not. So they made him the franchise player. And during the time that he had available to get other offers from NFL teams, zero teams contacted Lamar about the possibility of coming to the team, or at least inquiring.
Yeah, but part of the thing is that what do you got to you sign that player? You got to pay. You got to give the other team like 3 first-round picks or something like that.
Correct.
You know, so that there's other things involved. Now, on top of this, their GM Eric DaCosta offered him a 3-year fully guaranteed contract. He turned it down
because he wanted a 5-year, right?
You know, so and what he ends up getting is basically it gets a longer term, but he basically got the 3 years guaranteed. You know, so you can look at it. Contracts have changed dramatically over the last 10, 12 years. And the amount of guarantees. And really you can say 6 or 7 years and go back to the Watson deal as the one that changes, because once you have a deal, you're never going to tell the agent that deal doesn't exist, because the deal did exist. And everybody who signs a contract, you could look at the amount of money, all the big contracts, you know, Sweat, DJ, Komet, all these guys on the Bears got a lot of guaranteed money in those things. They're just not fully guaranteed.
Right.
Okay. Now, Colston Loveland's contract is fully guaranteed, but it's a rookie first-round contract, and it's over $20 million that's fully guaranteed.
Yeah, Flex says, I want Aldo as my agent. I would screw that up so bad, Flex. You don't want me representing you or anyone else. All right, so that leads, what you just said leads to a couple of questions in my mind. Number one, should there be guaranteed contracts in the NFL?
Well, you're making it sound like there's no guarantees. There are guarantees.
For every player that makes the 53-man roster, you know, every player is guaranteed. You know, there's all these tricks the NFL plays. Let's cut a player for a week. We save this and we save that. You know, it seems like it would be easier if everybody signed a 1-year contract fully guaranteed.
I think you'd have total chaos, because you'd have too many players switching clubs year after year after year. So where's your continuity? Don't forget, football is different than football's the ultimate team sport, where no other sport, you know, basketball, you got 5 guys and you know, you want like 3 superstars, and then
everybody
the rest
is a role player. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody else. Okay. Baseball is the pitcher against the batter. And
I get you. Yeah.
Okay. Hockey, you got 5 guys on the ice.
Everyone's skating this way, that way.
You know, you know, you can trade a guy in hockey. And by the way, today's is free agency day in the NHL.
Yeah.
July 1st. So there's like the NHL network has got like all day. It's like the NFL free agency day on March 15th.
Yes.
It is. Yes. You know, and but no contracts have come in yet, because I got it on in front of me. Because supposedly he couldn't start talking to teams until noon Eastern today. So then, you know, the agents are, well, we don't want to have a deal done at 12:15. Then, I mean, you know.
Yeah. Well, listen. So Kay says there's so many injuries in the NFL for 100% guarantees, but isn't that part of the reason why players deserve 100% guarantees? The business model of the NFL is for one man to collide with another man and beat the shit out of him. You know, that's an inherently dangerous business model. And so because of that. Now people say, well, they choose to play that. Yeah, they choose it, but they should also be well compensated for the fact that they're putting their lives at stake and their health at the very least. Don't you think players deserve guaranteed deals of some sort, Greg?
Again, they are getting a lot of money guaranteed. They're not just getting the full length of the contract guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I know where you're coming from, and if let's say a guy signs a 5-year contract, and he's it's worth $20 million, which 12.5 is fully guaranteed the way it's split out, and then the rest isn't, and then he's in the 4th year of the contract, and he gets hurt and he can't play anymore. Well, then he's not going to get that 5th year unless there's some guaranteed money in that.
Exactly right.
Okay,
right.
But there is compensation, disability compensation, other things. Now, obviously, it's not as much money, and I know I know where you're going with this, and I get it, but you've got more people involved in football than you got it in, the number of players.
Labor costs are high.
Yeah. I mean, between your roster is 53, and then you got 16 players on the practice squad,
mm-hmm.
and other guys, and you're doing injury settlements and everything else. When you get a guy hurt at training camp, and he's not going to make the team.
Right.
Okay, you waive him with an injury settlement. So you got to pay him. If he's got a 6-week injury or an 8-week injury, you got to pay him that 8 weeks. So the agent negotiates it with the cap guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's based on what the medical people say. It's not like you and I talk and say, well, I'll tell you what, I'll pay you for a month.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but it's a 3-month injury. So they got to have something that's concrete to use.
Yes. Isn't the solution for this, and I always remember this. This was about 30 years ago. I met a guy. We're having a picnic outdoors, and we start talking about sports. And the guy tells me, I don't follow any other professional sports other than golf. And it's because I love golf, but also it's the only sport where you are paid based on your performance. You win a tournament, you get your $1 million. You're in last place in the tournament.
Don't make the cut. You get nothing.
You get nothing. And he goes,
you got to pay your caddy for working for 2 days.
There you go. And so that's why I respect. So I then say, well, there should obviously be a base salary for players, and it should probably be tiered. The base salary for a superstar in the league should be higher than a base salary for a substitute in the league. But isn't the real answer here is to reward NFL players based on division titles, playoff games? I mean, and I know they do that now, but that's like chump change to some of these guys. If you win,
the playoff money is compared to contract money. Yeah, it is.
And what's a player get for a Super Bowl win? It's not much.
I don't know what the exact figure was. I know that go back to 2007 Super Bowl, 2006 season.
Mm-hmm.
Had we won the Super Bowl, the total playoff money, now this is almost 20 years ago now, was $156,000. Okay. We lost the game, so our loser share, and that's all the playoff games combined, was like $98,000, of which, people in the front office get that too.
Right.
So we got a player share. So as now back then, that was a lot of money. A bonus like that is is a good chunk of change. But is it compared to the overall size of the contracts?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. And there is a discrepancy on playoff money that probably should be rectified somehow.
Yep.
Especially
I agree.
because of what you're playing for.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something you probably got, you got to do in the next CBA. Now it goes up every year, but it doesn't go up. It's into the hundreds of thousands of dollars now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you play in a wild card game, you've got an extra game, so you're getting extra money.
Yes, indeed. That's a great point. The Super Bowl winners from the last Super Bowl got each player got $178,000, and the losers,
but that's just the Super Bowl win. But
right.
Now you got to take the
playoff
all
games.
the money. They played in, say, a divisional playoff, the league championship, or the conference championship game, and then the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And so that 178 is probably more like 275 or something like that.
Squeegee asked the question: if your contract is fully guaranteed, what's your motivation to work? You agree that players may not be motivated to work if they're got that.
Ask Nate Davis that question.
That's why I posed that question. Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point. Yeah, I hate to have to resort to that type of thinking because, again, the business model is players hitting each other. But you're right. There are certain players in the league who are just not going to work hard once they know the check is cleared. So
I use Nate Davis because he was a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
He got his check and forgot how to play football. Mm-hmm. He signed that contract here, was 3 years, 18 million, 15 million, something like that. Yep. I'm done. Is he in anybody's camp right now? Nope. He's done. He hung it up the day he signed that contract.
Yeah. Now, his mom passed away during that period. Do you think that perhaps, he got into such a funk, and now because he lost somebody very important to him that nothing else in the world mattered to him anymore?
I can't answer that, so I don't know. I don't know the person, but I do know that once he signed, and we've seen that before. They get their money and they forget how to play.
Yep. Yes. Well, and let me answer my own question regarding Nate Davis. Is if that's the case, that your mom died and now you're in a funk, go get therapy and get back to work, because you signed this contract and you have an obligation to give the people who are paying you the absolute best effort. And if that means that the team has to help you get therapy, or you do it on your own, do it, because you have an obligation.
But, what I could say in his case, he was showing up to work. Doesn't mean he was going all out.
Exactly.
So, and is everybody like that? No.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely not. I mean, there's some people that are prideful, and I know, just the way I was raised, and I'm sure you're the same way. If I'm getting paid X amount of dollars, they're getting that much out of me.
Yep. And Levante says therapy doesn't always work, although you're absolutely right. There's a lot of awful therapists out there. You've got to look for the right one, and that could take some effort. All right. I was interested in the topic, and I think it's important for fans to know a little bit about these collusion accusations, because it helps us fans understand the challenges that players face in maximizing their earnings. It helps to understand team decisions, even for their star players, and how the team is distributing money. There should be particularly in a sport like the NFL, there should be a large amount of transparency, especially now with betting. There should be a large amount of transparency with how contracts are doled out and the reasoning behind them and so forth. Do you think that the league has an obligation to share some of this information, Greg, so that there isn't, hints, suggestions that the league is trying to help one team win over the other. Look at all the stuff the Kansas City Chiefs. The NFL was supposed to be helping the Kansas City Chiefs win Super Bowls because of Taylor Swift, which I think is totally ridiculous. That's bullshit. They earned their Super Bowl appearances,
Right.
and I'm glad they lost so that the fucking conspiracy theorists would shut up.
Yeah, it's people are going to say stuff just to say stuff. You know that. We see it just how we open the show talking about how Miami trades a tight end, so they're going to trade to replace that tight end. They're going to trade for Cole Kmet. Let's just make something up.
That's right. Come on, let's make something up, Greg. Let's make some news. Ian Wheeler is going to be the starting running back for the Bears. All right, we're gonna switch topics here. Let's get to some questions we got here. Rusty wants to know about your Twitter feed. He says, it's so funny. Do you think that most of the people are serious or just posting stupid stuff to mess with you?
No, I think there's a lot of really stupid people. They don't understand the complexities of what goes on.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand the salary cap. They just say, "Oh, you got to go." We drafted a tight end so we can trade the other tight end. But there's a lot more to it than that.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. Greg, when I was in high school, I had a teacher, and we spent time after class talking about stuff. He was also a union projectionist, so he would be work at a movie theater, and we were working on some special projects. So I spent a lot of time talking to him. He was a mentor of mine. And one of the things that he said that I will never forget, he said, Aldo, 9/10 of the world's population have on their forehead, stamped on their forehead, stupid. That's how many stupid people there are. And you could make a lot of money taking advantage of these stupid people. And I'm like, that is really interesting coming from a school teacher. It's like you walking into class. I know that 9/10 of you are stupid, so I'm only I only expect the 1/10 of you to really take this advice in this class and put it to work for you. So,
well, it's people got narratives too,
yeah.
And they're going to go with their narrative to try to get their point across.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they know the narrative is totally false, but they're still trying to push their own thought process.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Do you agree with what Dominic Marquez says here? Salary cap and non-fully guaranteed contracts are why the NFL product is the best.
Yeah, I agree with that. Before we had a salary cap, you had the haves and the have-nots.
Mm-hmm.
And you still have haves and have-nots, but more so because of how they run the team, how the team is run, put it that way. Then because everybody's got equal dollars, basically, and an equal opportunity to go out and get players, it's how you use that money and how you budget your cap dollars and everything else, how you draft, how you go out and, you can go out and overpay for free agencies and put yourself in cap hell, especially if they don't work out.
Yes.
You got to be real smart about it.
Right. I think revenue sharing, like you've called it, Greg, and I've been calling it for years, socialism is what makes the NFL great. Because if you want to give all 32 teams equal chance to win Super Bowls, then you've got to share the revenue. You need two teams to play. And so a small market team like a Green Bay Packers play the New York Giants, a large market team. That revenue should be shared equally, because if not, then it's just going to be New York versus LA versus Chicago.
That's baseball.
Exactly. And I hate baseball right now. It's like,
but the funny thing is that I just saw an article yesterday that, between the Mets and the Yankees, they went all in this year.
mm-hmm.
on getting players just to get themselves in position to either win a World Series or at least get far into the playoffs. And both teams could be on the outside looking in as we're reaching the half point, of the season. Mm-hmm. So the money doesn't always do that, but still, then you look at the Dodgers. Dodgers are the best team, money can buy. Yeah. Their payroll is so much more than anybody else's. And the money they take in is so much more than anybody else's. And that kills a team, say, like Pittsburgh, or what was Oakland is now Sacramento temporarily and going to be Vegas. They'll have more money when they get to Vegas. But then you got teams like that, Kansas City, that just don't have the money those teams have.
Right. Well, it's interesting that you the first team you brought up was Pittsburgh, because I think that they have probably been the team that's been hurt the most. They've brought up great players and had to just get rid of them because they couldn't afford them. And I don't think this was because management was cheap. It was just because they played in a smaller market. It's because other teams had more resources and stuff. And if they would have had revenue sharing, Pittsburgh Pirates would probably have a half dozen World Series over the last 4 or 5 decades.
Well, yeah, a lot of it too is, like your TV rights. Mm-hmm. Every baseball game gets televised, but most of them are local TV rights that your local sports channel is carrying. What's doing that? Is that your kitchen getting redone?
Yeah, it is. Okay. Sorry.
So no, that's okay. So obviously a New York or an LA or a Chicago is going to get a lot more money for their TV rights than a Pittsburgh or a Kansas City. And that really, that hurts those franchises.
Indeed. Sure does. J2K says it sounds like we're talking about socialism versus capitalism, not to get political, but isn't that what's really going on? Yeah.
Well, the NFL, I've been saying it for years, and you just said it. The NFL is socialism. It's everybody, you got to pay X amount of dollars to get into the league to buy a franchise, or to, if they had expansion, to put up the money for an expansion, but I can't see them expanding anytime soon. But now, just to buy a team. Now, look at the Lakers. They get sold for $10 billion.
Unbelievable.
If the Lakers are worth $10 billion, what are the Chicago Bears worth?
15. Easy.
They got to be worth more than the Lakers.
Yes. Yes. I know the Lakers are the second biggest market, but it's a basketball team, and right. NFL is king. So good stuff. All right, we got some questions here, and keep them coming. By the way, Levante did some research. Bonilla is getting almost $1.2 million per year.
Yeah, that's right out until 2035. He's got 10 more years of a check. So he's got 11.93 million more coming.
His agent needs to be in the Agent Hall of Fame, whoever that was.
I just want to know how long he's been out of baseball, because I remember him playing, but
2001, somebody said.
2001.
Yes,
he's been out of the league for 24 years. He's got paid then for. He's getting paid for 34 years after he's out.
Why can't I find a deal like that?
That's a hell of a pension now.
That is wild. All right, let's go to Kay. Greg, have you seen the updated weights on the Bears roster? What do you make of them? Example.
They're not. Where did you see these?
I'm assuming he saw them on the website. Let me go there and see if that has been indeed updated there.
Billy actually lost weight.
He said he lost weight? Really?
Yeah, he said he lost weight. He was trying to get smaller. He probably played at 320 last year. But those guys never have the exact weight.
Yeah.
Almost never.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I mean, there's a lot of estimates on that. Why reveal the exact weight? It's not going to do anybody any good.
Like on the guys they drafted, they gave the combine weight.
Yeah, which is now on the website at 326. Heaviest guy in the Bears is Jonathan Ford, 346 pounds for the 26-year-old third-year player. Billings is next at 340. Dexter, 326. Amagaje, 326. Darnell Wright, 325. Bill Murray comes in at a hefty 321. So if there's some accuracy to that, I think he's gained some weight because he was just at around 300 last season.
Well, that's what they listed him at. Who knows what he really was?
I agree.
You know, like I say, we never gave the real weights to PR.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I had when Scott, what the hell was it? I can't even think of his last name. He was running PR, and he'd have a guy at 5'11" on you know, in the media guide.
Mm-hmm.
I go, he's 5'11.7". He's an eighth of an inch short of 6 foot. Why they got him a 5'11"? Well, it said 5'11". You know, why don't you round it up to the next highest one, 6 feet? You know, just little things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Now they have these weights. What we used to, I only can speak from my experience. Players weighed in almost every day during training camp. They didn't have to make weight every day, but they had to have they had an assigned weight, you know, when they get to camp. And if you don't make, well, now let me clarify this a little bit. Assigned weight, you can be over on the weight as long as your percentage of body fat is okay.
Okay.
Okay. So if you're assigned, if you're a lineman and you're assigned 17.5% body fat and you're 5 pounds over, but you're at 17.2 on the body fat, that means that's muscle. You're good.
Okay.
Okay. So it's a two-way street on that. But if a guy's overweight and he's fat, he can't pass the physical and he's put on PUP.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he can't come off a PUP until he can get his weight in order.
Okay. So,
but again, we didn't share these weights with the PR department, you know, what their actual weight was.
So let me ask you this, Greg, as somebody who's scouted tens of thousands of players, that's safe to say, right? Maybe hundreds of thousands. What is the most important thing for you to learn about a player in terms of the body? You know, obviously the metrics of speed and stuff are important, but I'm talking about, is it more important to learn the weight or the body fat constitution? And was it difficult for you to get that information from colleges?
Very rarely would you get body fat, and it's who's doing it. A lot of people use the calipers, and those aren't always the most exact.
Mm-hmm.
The most exact thing I've seen, as long as I've been doing this, is the bod pod that the Bears have. And it's an egg-shaped device that you sit in and air flows around. And, you know, I can't tell you all the science involved in it, but it gets your correct body fat within 0.1%. Mm. And, you know, it's far more superior and accurate than using the calipers. The calipers is just a pinch test, you know.
Right.
You know, and it's like, you know, you could be a half inch off on where you're taking the pinch, and that can have a say in what your percentage body fat is.
A huge say, yes.
So it's kids who in college, I'm not going to say most of the bigger guys, when they come into the league, and I shouldn't say most, I should say a lot, but they're fat. Mm-hmm. And meaning if you stuck them in the bod pod, their percentage of body fat's going to be high. And why is it? Maybe they really worked out a lot because they don't eat right.
Right.
Okay, so they got to learn. It's like anything else. Like they learn how to work out correctly. They got to learn how to eat right. That's why everybody's got a nutrition staff.
Yep.
There, and
it's huge.
Once they learn how to eat right, then they can control everything a lot better than they could while they were in college. In college, they got a big cafeteria right in the football facility, but that doesn't mean they're eating right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That is a huge thing nowadays, that teams are rightly paying much more attention. Nutrition. What are you eating? When are you eating? Are you getting enough sleep? All those things really can help a player's performance. Dominique just posted this, and I think he's wrong. He says nobody is forcing these guys to be NFL players. They know the risk. Well, that wasn't always the case, though, Dominique. And Greg, jump in here. The whole thing with CTE, that was something that the league tried to hide because they knew they would have liability and would have to drastically change the rules of the game if they admitted that hitting players, helmet-to-helmet hits, were causing bruises in brains that could hurt.
You're referring to the 6 concussions I've had that I know of?
Yeah, so you would know better than me. Only concussions I've had was after falling asleep after too many drinks.
No, I've had 6 that I know of.
Wow.
Could I have had more?
Mm-hmm.
Probably. It used to be, he got his bell rung.
Yes.
And then, he's back out on the field 4 plays later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I'm sure that went on. A lot of it was, to say the league didn't know. Well, did the league know in the 90s and in the 80s about it? I don't know. I'm not so sure they did. No. Mm-hmm. If you go back and look at the NFL films and look at all the hits they showed, you notice you never see those films anymore.
Yeah.
They like cut them out. And where guys are flying through the air, leading with their helmets and everything else. And when you saw that, you wanted to be like that. And so you'd go out and do the same thing. Mm-hmm. Now they're teaching you how to hit. Right. Now, was there, I can't say specifically that there was sort of collusion or something like that. I mean, that's above my pay grade ever was. Right. But how serious is a concussion really? I know I said to my doctor, and this was probably 6-7 years ago, I said, I know I've had six documented concussions. Should I be worried? He said, you're all right now, aren't you? I said, yeah, I think so. He said, why worry about it?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, if a lot of times stuff is psychosomatic, right? I'm worried I got a concussion. It could, I could get CTE and so forth. All of a sudden you start displaying those behaviors because you've made it like a prophecy. So your doctor was probably right. Don't think about it. You'll be fine.
I mean, could it take a couple years off my life? I don't know. I'm still alive.
Yeah, indeed. And your brain is as sharp as ever. Well, almost.
Well, I know my brain's sharp. I don't know nothing else isn't, but
All right. Let's see. We got some more questions here. AW, I think we may have talked about this. Why doesn't the league set the length of guarantees for draft picks, such as 4 years for rounds 1, 2, 3, 5, that kind of stuff?
Well, first round picks get 4-year guaranteed contracts.
Right. But there is no ruling on second round picks, right?
Right. And this year, the first 2 picks have signed their contracts.
Mm-hmm.
First 2 picks to the second round. They both got fully guaranteed contracts. And that's why you haven't seen another second round pick sign a contract yet. Now, they were getting most second-round picks. We're getting just about all three out of the 4 years guaranteed a year ago. The fourth year wasn't. So, it's and there's going to be a battle there.
Yep.
It only takes one guy to give in and sign his contract that, Joe Schmo doesn't want to miss camp. And here's the thing, the agents know that. All the agents I talk to, does my client no good to hold him out. So it's just, camp start in 3 weeks. In 2 weeks, you'll start seeing these guys sign.
Yeah. And isn't it like for us Bears fan, isn't it like once again, we get 3 second-round draft picks, and we might have difficulty signing all 3 of them because this is the year all of a sudden second-rounders are demanding guaranteed contracts because of the first couple.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Who knows what the negotiations were with 1 and 2? Yeah. But they signed quickly, and they got fully guaranteed contracts. Okay,
so let me ask you this. Go ahead.
So now you go to 3, and 3 might, and you look at the first thing they do is, for comparison's sake, is they look at what did 3 get last year.
Right.
Okay. Now you're going to get a bump in money because it's a year later and the salary cap's bigger. So that's a given. So it's more about there's no argument over that. It's how much of the guarantee did the guy number 3 get last year? How much did number 4 get last year? And then you're going to look at the percentage. And if number 3 got, the first 3 years guaranteed, and he got 52%, and I'm just making this up, 52% of year 4 guaranteed. Well, yeah, I could see him shooting for the moon and trying to get 100% of year 4 guaranteed. And maybe he gets it, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he gets 75% of year 4 guaranteed. But part of it is, you look, and I get where the teams are coming from. What's the average lifespan of a player?
Right.
And then you got guys like, a third-round pick, which doesn't get all those guarantees, but you could use just as an example, Velus Jones. What if you guaranteed him all 4 years? Then he got a mistake, and they're trying to. So what I'm trying to do is try to be fair on both sides.
And I think that's the process that should be counted on. Or that we hope will happen as this thing gets figured out. J2K wants to know, should we really be worried about this prior to training camp? I think this is the time that agents and teams figure this all out.
They do. They're talking, but like I say, it'll go on for a few more weeks, and then you're going to be teams are going to start reporting, and the player's going to get itchy because he doesn't want to miss camp. The agent knows it's not good to hold the guy out. And you'll have a breakthrough. Right. And once you get the first guy that doesn't have, whatever he is on the totem pole of the second round, then it's going to open it up for the rest of the round. So they're going to all fall into place.
And I will say to J2K, I mean, this is a somewhat unprecedented. The league has never been faced with the possibility that they will be forced by the marketplace to guarantee contracts for second rounders. Now, probably not all 32 picks from the second round are going to get guaranteed contracts, but more than any time else in the past. And so we know that the NFL would like to stop that trend. So all this collusion stuff that Mike Florio and Pablo Torre are talking about, could it potentially be going on right now to stop the flow of second rounders getting their contracts?
Well, I talked to one agent. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. And he's of the belief that Burden was the 7th pick of the second round. Burden will not get, and he's an agent now, so he's on the other side. Burden will not get a fully guaranteed contract.
Wow.
4 years.
Ooh,
based on what last year, what the 7th pick got.
He ain't going to be happy about that, Luther Burden. As we saw, he was not happy being sliding to the second round. And how he faced the media.
I kind of argued it with him. I said, I think 10 will get it at least.
Yeah, I recall you telling me that. It will be interesting to see how far this goes.
No, he goes, no, and he pulls it because they got the contracts.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is what I mean when you say the agents don't collude too. They got every freaking contract.
Yeah.
But they're not one entity. They're separate guys.
Absolutely.
And so, but you can't tell me that if you're going to say one side is colluding, the other side isn't colluding. Because sure they are.
Okay. By the way, those top 2 second rounders, they got guaranteed contracts. Did their agents, do you suspect or do you know that their agents are sharing information with other agents about how they got it done? Here's the rationale.
You could call it, the guy who's got number 3 could call up number 2.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we can find out who was the first pick in the second round.
Carson Wessinger, the linebacker out of UCLA. And then that was followed by Jaden Higgins, the Iowa State wide receiver, went to the Texans.
How do you spell his last name?
SCHWESINGER.
WESIN? Oh, yeah, I see it. WESINGER contract via Spotrac.
Campus only.
I'm not even going to look at the contract. I just want to look at who the agent is.
Okay. Let's see if I can find it too. Carson.
Oh, that went that way. Then went to Cleveland Browns contract. If you look up his
some sources, Steve Carrick. Sound familiar?
Is it? No, I don't know the name. And then it usually says the firm he's with.
Team WASS, WASS.
Okay, I don't know that one either. So he's got that. So theoretic, and then who was number 2?
The kid from Iowa, the wide receiver, Jaden Higgins.
Oh, the big tall wide receiver.
Yep, that's him. He's going to be a player. Let's see. I have it. Chris Cabot of Equity Sports negotiated Higgins fully guaranteed 4-year, $12 million contract.
So theoretically, could Joe Schmo from another firm call Chris Cabot from Equity Sports and say, "How'd you get that done?" Sure, he could.
So, but there
probably already has.
Why would another agent want to share that with a competing agent? He wants to be the guy that gets.
First of all, the contracts turn in. They all got copies of the contract. They get turned in the NFLPA. They're on a website that if you're a member, you can got access to. They got it, so it's got it. But it's like, what did you say to them to get the full guarantee?
Yeah, I want to know the process.
Or whatever. And they probably already know the answer. So, but it's, but I posed to one guy, like, again, a few weeks ago, I go, I first said, just to see how he'd react, I go, I think 10 to 15 are going to get fully guaranteed. He goes, no fucking way. And that was exact. And now, again, that's the agent saying that.
Yeah. Wow.
I go, why do you say that? And he said, because of what the contracts were last year.
Yeah. Tom G has an interesting thought. He says these agents want to play hardball with teams to establish terms for the next contract. That's why they argue about these small rookie contracts so hard.
Of course it is. It's look what I did for so-and-so.
Absolutely.
They use that as a recruiting tool.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
And the first guy that caves, everybody else will use it against him next year.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Levante has a question. Greg, what do you say to these podcasters on YouTube, many of which have had you as their guests, who entertain the goofiness of Bears Twitter and make them topics on their shows?
I tried the goofiness. It to me, it's crazy because most of the goofiness on Bears Twitter is people who just don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know what it takes to put a team together, what it's about, the implications of contracts, those type of things. And so they just throw anything out there.
Right.
And a lot of it's for engagement purposes.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get to that question, but I want to comment on what Greg just said. There's all types of fans. There are the serious football fans who want to know everything about the X's and O's. Some want to know everything about how the business of the NFL is run, to the much on the other side of the spectrum, the very, very casual NFL fan who watches it with, buddies or family, having a beer and hardly watching the game on TV, just looking at the replay of the touchdown that was scored. Are fans because it's a social event as opposed to something that is they're passionate about. And so there's podcasters, YouTubers, communicators who are probably reaching out to that whole different wide spectrum of fans. Guys like Greg are not going to put up with the bullshit stuff, the misinformation and stuff, but other people don't mind. Hey, it's just shit. Who cares?
In fairness, they just don't know.
Right. They don't know. So they're not interested in learning. I mean, I have a brother-in-law who we went to see a Bears game the year after Brian Urlacher was not signed. And for a quarter and a half, I'm listening to him talk about how they should have signed Urlacher, and Urlacher wasn't done. He's a team leader and stuff. And I'm like, he can't run anymore. Why would you sign a guy who needs a wheelchair to get from sideline to sideline? But, he didn't care about that. He just wanted Urlacher signed. So anyway.
No, that's what people don't understand.
Yeah.
And there's reasons why you do some things and don't do other things.
Indeed.
And sometimes it's just too hard. The complexities of it are just too hard to explain. And when you try to explain it, and that's one thing I try to do, I don't know if I'm always successful, is try to walk through that stuff, the complexities of what goes on. But it's rules have changed, and I'm not totally up to date on everything that's changed. Pretty close, but not 100%.
I know you work hard to stay on top of stuff. Yeah. By the way, can we help Jeff out? He's at the airport. He's saying that there's a guy having a full-blown conversation in public on his speakerphone. The guy's in the airport right now, literally holding his phone up to his face to talk with someone on the speakerphone. Greg, how would you handle that situation? Would you
Walk
go up
somewhere else so it wasn't bothering me?
I expected you to say I'd go up there and smack the phone out of the guy's hand.
No, I mean, he's got the right to do, I guess, whatever he wants. Is it inconvenient and rude? Absolutely. But, what are you going to do about
it? Jeff says he did walk away, but he's at a small airport. You're stuck with it, brother. You know what I would do, Jeff? I would sit right next to him and do the same thing. Call your brother up. Call Tim Willis, his co-host on the Willis Twins Power podcast every Friday, and just start talking really, really loud. Yeah, there's a guy right next to me talking. That would be pretty cool.
It'd be pretty funny.
It'd be pretty funny, yeah.
So
but
let me ask you,
make sure you can take it if you get into a fight.
I've had 3 phone calls. I got my wife's car in to get a little repair.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And they've called and left 3 messages for me So can we, meaning that there's something up or something with the air conditioning? I know
it's $1,000. That's what it is.
Oh no, just to check it was $350. And then so I should get back to them. So can we cut this one a little, 9-10 minutes short?
No, I think we've done a good job of talking about the collusion thing. I urge people, if you're really interested in the subject, check out Pablo Torre's podcast and the thing. I think there's a lot of useful information, but also check out other sources too, because both Pablo and Mike Florio were clearly on the side of trying to uncover something that Greg says it's not necessarily there, because the final result is that the committee found nothing wrong with what the NFL did. So
right. I mean, I read that part, and that was clear as day. And when I read that, I'm going, what the hell is he doing?
Exactly.
Up until that point, I thought, because what I did to Google, I go, did the NFL recently lose a collusion? No, they didn't lose. They won.
That's right. So, but it is fascinating to follow, especially here in the first week of July when there's not much to talk about. But we will be back next week.
3.5 weeks. We'll have stuff to talk about.
Thank you. We will have plenty to talk about, and
we're into July, so it's.
Yes, exactly. So if any of our followers here have topics that they want us to entertain for upcoming shows, please let us know. Make sure you follow the Barroom Network and follow Greg on the X Machine at GGABE Football. And of course, you can follow me at Barroom Network on X. Greg, any final words?
Nope. Everybody have a good and safe 4th.
Yeah, likewise, and good luck with the car, brother.
Okay, buddy.
Adios.
See you later.